Tonight's Fanatic Forum is more than meets the eye because we're going to full on introduce you into the Energon Universe and why it is currently dominating comic books right now. So we'll set you up with everything you need to know about this. And as they say, knowing is half the battle. This is the Fanatic Forum. Hey everybody, happy Friday and welcome to the Fanatic Forum. I'm your Fanatic and host, George Buehler. Hope everybody's having a good one out there so far and braving the cold out there because, as my friend and colleague Barry Burnson would say, it's stupid cold out there. Snow and winter, I hate it. But my wife's happy because she loves the snow, and she's had the whole week off of school, so that's cool as well. So there you go, everybody's happy. So, yeah, we'll take it. So hope everybody's had a good one out there so far. I want to remind you guys, next weekend is the Multiverse Fundraiser. This is the event that the Back of the Show Box Podcast Network puts on every year. We do this for charity. It's an online virtual con, basically. So there'll be panels, celebrity interviews, all kinds of cool stuff. That is next weekend. Let me get the graphic up here. Yeah, so basically, we've got some taped segments that are going to be airing on the 25th, on Thursday. But the real kickoff is Friday, January 26th at 6 p.m. because the Fanatic Forum gets to interview Marvel Comics legend Bob Hall. This guy's covers basically populated your childhood if you were a Marvel fan of the 1980s. I mean, he did Avengers, West Coast Avengers, Moon Knight, Marvel Team Up, Emperor Doom, Shadow Man, G.I. Joe. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's a huge chunk of my collection that's full of Bob's work. So I'm very excited to talk to him. But, of course, throughout the weekend, we've got tons of other panels and celebrity interviews. Lots of fun. And we get to sponsor comic books for kids this year for our charity. So all the proceeds goes to Comic Books for Kids, which is a fantastic charity, which, of course, if you guys normally tune into the Fanatic Forum, we air their ads all the time. They're a charity that gets comic books to children's hospitals all over the country. And, of course, it's appropriate comic books for kids. They don't go with the hardcore stuff or anything like that. It's appropriate stuff for kids, but yeah, it gets comic books in their hands, something fun, something to take their mind off the pain and whatever stuff they're in, and something just to brighten their day. So it's a fantastic charity, and we are just pleased as hell to sponsor it. It's going to be a lot of fun next weekend. The Fanatic Forum will be an hour earlier than it normally is, 6 p.m., but yeah, that's all for good reason. And then, of course, I'll be popping up throughout the weekend as well, producing some panels and stuff like that. So you may see me on some on Sunday. I don't know if I'm going to be popping up on the camera or not, but I'll at least be present and whatnot. So, yeah, hope you guys can definitely tune in. Just follow the Multiverse Fundraiser on Facebook and YouTube for all your needs there. And basically, yeah, it's going to be a blast. So, all right. We have got some new books to talk about this week. And man, this was a hot week for comics here. Let me tell you, we had some big books that came out this week here. So I've got one Marvel, one DC. Hello, Pepper. Oh, she's playing. One of my cats just ran through with a toy squirrel in her mouth. So she's hunting. So there you go. Vicious hunter. All right. So one Marvel selection here. Definitely had to talk about this one here. Avengers Twilight #1. This is by Chip Zdarsky and Daniel Acuna. Lots of variant covers on this one here. The one by Alex Ross is awesome. If we have any left in the store, I'm actually getting one tomorrow. But this is a sandbox title here, so it's not connected to a normal continuity. This takes place in the future. I would definitely compare this to DC's Kingdom Come. Because the plot of this one is that Steve Rogers has retired as Captain America. The super soldier serum no longer is in his veins, so he is now just a normal old man living his life, married, whatever else. The future of the Marvel Universe is a little bit bleak, though. It's kind of gotten a bit dark, a bit, I don't know, everybody's just into themselves. Not the heroes aren't really they're much more interested in being celebrities than they are heroes, and seems like maybe even some of the heroic things they do are actually stunts that are put on. Unfortunately, they are led by the son of Tony Stark and the Wasp, Janet Van Dyne. So, and he's not the greatest little kid. So, basically, Steve's got to essentially put the suit back on one more time. He's got some old friends that are kind of helping him out, but he also has a new generation of defenders to help him. So a really cool beginning of the series here. Daniel Cunha's art. He does the cover here. So it has a nice dark, kind of hard edge to it. But yeah, this is going to be a cool series. And of course, Chip Zdarsky is on fire right now. His Daredevil run that just ended a few months back has been epic. It's going to go down as one of the best runs of the series. Currently on Batman, he is just killing it. Probably some of the best writing Batman's had in a couple of decades. So, yeah, just fantastic stuff here. Next up for DC Comics here, of course, got to talk about this one. Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, issue 4. Of course, we're still having trouble with Kaiju on Earth, wrecking basically everything. The Justice League, they've pulled out all the reserves, the Titans, everybody that's a hero in the DC universe. It's an all hands on deck situation here because there are giant monsters everywhere in the DC universe. So right now we're dealing with a situation here in Atlantis where Kong is down here wrecking some stuff. It seems to be drawn to Atlantis for some particular reason. Maybe a beacon's bringing him there. Not quite sure what. But there's some other kaiju he's fighting with, and finally, it's kind of a last-ditch effort. Aquaman has to literally release the Kraken. So, yeah, again, this series has just been a lot of fun. It's another sandbox series not connected to the DC universe proper. So it's just an absolute blast. If you love your big monsters and superheroes trying desperately to fight them, but they're clearly outmatched, this is a good book here. And if you're behind on it, of course, the book has been selling really hot. So this week, DC released the monster-sized edition of number 1, which contains the first and second issues in one volume with a really cool wraparound cover. So if you need to catch up on the first couple issues, if you happen to miss those or have trouble finding them at your local comic shop, the monster-sized edition's out now. It's got a new cover to it, but it's got issues 1 and 2 in there. So hope you guys can pick those up. Got a couple of comments. Let's see who's on here. John Pica says we didn't get our new comics this week. Oh, that's a bummer, dude. Yeah, our Marvel shipment was partially late over at Clopper and Comics. Like, we got Avengers Twilight and some of our indie books, like all our Image stuff, but like half of our Marvel stuff and some of our indie stuff didn't show up literally until this afternoon. So, yeah, I feel your pain on that one, sir. So hopefully you get those shortly here. Said Duke. John also says Duke number 1 has him hooked. Yes, we are definitely going to be talking about that in the very near future. Because, man, let me tell you, as the finally the G.I. Joe entry of the Energon Universe has entered now, and whew, I tell you, that stuff is getting hot. Seth Moore, my brother from another mother, says, hola, brother. He's here and ready for the download on the Energon Universe. Excellent. Yes, we have got a lot to talk about for sure. All right, so next up for indie stuff here, since we're talking G.I. Joe, Larry Hama's issue number 303 of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero. Now, right now, this is kind of a standalone. not connected to the Energon Universe proper. So if you've been reading the IDW series, this literally connects right into that. The plot line's going right now that basically good half of the Cobra army that was on Cobra Island has now been slightly mutated by this virus that old Serpentor there made and unintentionally released on his own people. So Serpentor, Dr. Mindbender, a few other Cobra folks are basically weird looking, slightly mutated. Don't know if it's going to be a permanent venture or whatnot. So, some Cobra operatives have gone over there to investigate what their situation is. Joes have now gone over to investigate. So, we're now kind of getting this trident sort of situation here where we've got multiple forces going on Cobra Island to see what has happened with these mutated remnants here. All the while, Cobra Commander himself has absconded and has decided he's going to go out and do a little bit of recruiting to try to help his cause here. And, well, he's going to incorporate some old friends somewhere, maybe in the Florida Everglades, perhaps. Little chocolate donuts and grape soda as a bride, perhaps. So we haven't seen the old Dreadnoks in a bit here, so it'll be fun to see them. The other thing, too, of course, if you're familiar with the IDW run here, Larry introduced this new army called Revanche, which basically are robot AIs. There's not a human in the entire group. And they put a hit out on Snake Eyes and Scarlet because they're basically hanging out at Snake Eyes' pad in the Sierra Mountains. And yeah, it's a rough fight for our guy. And it's really weird now because since Snake Eyes was essentially resurrected, his face isn't deformed, his vocal cords aren't paralyzed, so he can talk. And it's really weird to have Snake Eyes have dialogue. And for almost 40 years, Snake Eyes has been mute. So it's really strange for an old school Joe fan to hear Snake Eyes talk, but there you are. He's talking up a storm now. Next up from Image Comics, this is another hot one here. The Deviant #3. This is from James Tynion and Joshua Hickson. This is a murder mystery book here. Takes place in two time periods, 1972 and the current modern day. 1972, there is a killer dressed as Santa Claus who is murdering homosexual men, but also doing this in basically positioning them in like grotesque fashion, kind of if you remember like the Hannibal series on NBC, kind of like the murder statues that he would make. Similar thing here, but Christmas themed. So fast forward to the modern day, a comic book writer who's trying to do something new decides he's going to write a comic about these murders and is interviewing the gentleman who's been in prison for 30 some odd years, accused of these murders, talking to him, getting information about this, interviewing survivors, things like that. But also there's someone in the modern day committing these murders again. So they kind of telegraph who it might be in this third issue. They don't quite spell it out just yet, but I love me a good murder mystery, and it's very creepy. This is like a highbrow Silent Night, Deadly Night. So yeah, but really cool series here. First issue is already in second printing. Second issue is going to go into second printing here pretty soon. So yeah, James Tynion is one of the hottest writers in the country right now. Is very consistent in quality. So when you pick up a book of his, you know it's going to be good. You know it's probably going to be creepy because he loves doing the horror stuff. So yeah, it's solid stuff. Let's see a couple more comments on here. Luna Smith said, "Hey, good to see you, and I have a cool collection. Thank you very much. Appreciate that." Seth Moore chimed in and said it's hard to fathom a chatty Snake Eyes. I wouldn't say he's chatty. He's not, he's able to speak, and he's kind of like Ron Swanson. He doesn't have to say a lot to do a lot, but it's really weird to have Snake Eyes talking. Yeah. So hopefully he doesn't have a Minnie Mouse voice or anything. Well, since I don't actually hear, God, I hope not. Yeah. Oh no! Now see, now I'm going to hear a weird squeaky voice when I'm reading G.I. Joe comics. Thanks, Seth. All right. Next up from Oni Press here. This is Invasive Issue 2 from Colin Bunn. This has been a cool series here. Again, more creepy stuff. But there is a rogue doctor who is going out and preying upon people who are addicted to plastic surgery, and they're always trying to change their looks or better themselves for whatever reason. And he promises he can give them all their dreams, and what he ends up doing is scarring them horribly, and then kind of sending them back out to the world. So you've got a doctor who is basically investigating this physician here because she's got invested interest because her daughter was one of his patients, and he removed her vocal cords, so she'll basically never speak again. And then a police detective whose partner is one of this doctor's victims. So they're now on the case for this guy, trying to find out more about his network of people. And basically, our investigators stumble upon a support group that may actually be kind of a feeding ground, so to speak. So, really cool stuff. Again, the art is just, you know, really eerie. The Brian Level variant covers are grotesque in a good way. Just really cool. I liken this to a mashup of like CSI and Nip Tuck. But yeah, it definitely has kind of a procedural, mystery sort of feel to it. But yeah, it's definitely got some gore to it. So viewer discretion is advised. Our last book here for the new books here, and this is another big one, and we'll definitely be talking more in depth about this one. Cobra Commander #1 here. Our next entry into Energon Universe, and a lot to download and talk about with this book here. And we will do that very soon here. But yeah, Joshua Williamson is essentially running the G.I. Joe side of the Energon Universe right now. So he's got Duke #1 that's out. That will be a 4-issue miniseries. Cobra Commander, again, will be a 4-issue miniseries. But the good news is there are still 2 more G.I. Joe miniseries to come from the Energon Universe. So those will be, I would assume, later in the year. We don't know what those series are just yet. Probably because they may have to do with something that's going on in both the Duke and Cobra Commander series, respectively. So, yeah, some very cool stuff here. And we're going to talk more about that very soon here. But first, we're going to take a short break for our friends here at Comic Books for Kids. And we'll come right back and talk a lot about the Energon Universe here. Stay tuned.
Comic Books for Kids provides comic books to kids in hospitals and cancer centers across the U.S. It's a place where we can all work together to make sure every child has a comic book. 100% of all proceeds go towards the kids. It's about making a difference, and while they're in the hospital, allowing them to fly like a superhero, battle dragons, or rescue teddy bears. We are in every state in the country and now support over 160 hospitals. Every month, we add more.
Visit cb4k.org.
All right, we are back, folks. And like I said, next weekend is the Multiverse fundraiser. So we've got some tape segments that are going to be airing on Thursday, January 25th. Follow Multiverse Fundraiser on Facebook or the Cereal Box Network for all the information and needs with that. But the official kickoff will be Friday, January 26th, 6 p.m. Eastern, because the Fanatic Forum gets to have the absolute pleasure of talking to Marvel Comics legend Bob Hall. Like I said at the top of the show, this guy, if you were a child of the 80s, this guy did probably most of the covers you love. Avengers, West Coast Avengers, Moon Knight, Shadow Man, Marvel Team Up, G.I. Joe, Emperor Doom, which, guys, if you haven't read Emperor Doom, that was amazing. That was one of the old-fashioned Marvel graphic novels before they finally started just releasing trade paperbacks as normal. But they usually had this banner of the Marvel graphic novel. The very first one of that was The Death of Captain Marvel. I think Emperor Doom was like number 9 or 10, I believe. But yeah, fantastic Doctor Doom story there. That has some Doctor Strange stuff in there as well, but there's mostly Doom. Forget that magic user. Yeah. All right, so time to talk about the Energon Universe here. So honestly, first place we got to go is with Void Rivals #1. This book came out, I would say, early last year. We knew Robert Kirkman had a new book coming out. Lorenzo De Felici did the art did the main art for the series here. We knew it was a sci-fi book, but basically, it's like, okay, well, Kirkman's got a new book coming out. Very storied writer. Sure, let's check it out. About 3/4 of the way through the book here, the story is very much, if you remember the 80s film Enemy Mine that had Dennis Quaid and Louis Gossett Jr. in it, where you've got basically a human and an alien. They're marooned on basically an alien planet together. They both need to get off, but they have to basically rely on each other to survive. So instead of fighting each other, they have to bond and survive. Very similar to this here. You've got basically two warring races, two pilots or soldiers on the opposite sides of each other, trapped on a planet, trying to get off. 3/4 of the way through this book, jet fire from the Transformers is found by our two heroes here, and basically is kind of in a dormant state. They revive him, and he's like, "Hey, I'm not supposed to be here," and has a brief conversation with them, takes off for Earth. And we finish the book, and everybody's like, what the heck is going on here? And then there's a letter here from Robert Kirkman basically telling us, welcome to this new thing called the Energon Universe. This is a shared universe between G.I. Joe and the Transformers, and will also include Void Rivals and other titles in the future. So the comics world is literally, minds are blown, because this literally came as a complete surprise. Very much like the end of The Walking Dead, where he basically ended on issue 193. There were solicitations for at least 4 or 5 months ahead of 193. So everybody thought, book's still going. All of a sudden, boom, 193. Oh, it's the last issue. We had like a week's notice. So, they just dropped the hammer on us in a very similar way. This is what Robert Kirkman does. So Kirkman will keep on writing Void Rivals. We don't know how long this series is going to run for. Currently, let's see here. We're in 5 issues now. 6 issues now. Yeah, so 6 issues of Void Rivals here. So each issue has at least had one cameo from a Transformers character. They've been relying a lot, definitely, on the Transformers, the movie, the 80s stuff, because, we've had Skutzoid, who was like a bounty hunter who showed up after the movie, so kind of like the second generation of Transformers. The Quintesson judges, they're like the 6-face judge from the movie. They've popped up in here. Shockwave, the Decepticons, popped up in here. So we've had multiple cameos from other different Transformers kind of popping up here, because everything takes place in space or whatever else. So we've had no connection whatsoever to the G.I. Joe universe. And honestly, a lot of this stuff is by design, because they want to say, well, we have all these connected books, but you can read Void Rivals and enjoy Void Rivals without having to worry about G.I. Joe and Transformers. And also those books are, in similar fashion as well. If you want to just read Transformers, you can enjoy Transformers and not have to worry, because if there's any important points that need to be made, they'll be made in there. And then basically they'll be reiterated or expanded upon in some of the other books if need be. So again, like I said, Kirkman busts out this letter, says, okay, here's this Energon Universe. We're going to have a Transformers book come out. We've got a Duke miniseries for G.I. Joe and a Cobra Commander series that introduces both sides of Joe and Cobra in this new world. So because everything is kind of a new take on things. We have a lot of familiarity, but there's also some new twists on stuff as well here. So basically, going right into our next book here, Transformers #1. This book sold over 150,000 copies upon its release. It is in 4th printings right now for #1. So, yeah, crazy successful book here. Daniel Warren Johnson's the writer on it, and then he and Mike Spicer are the artistic team on here. So Daniel usually does a lot of the covers, and then helps out with some of the inking with Mike Spicer. But yeah, so we are in the first 4 issues of Transformers now, and then I believe issue 5 starts a new arc which we're going to get a new creative team, or not a new creative team, but a new artist coming in. I believe it's Jorge Fornes, I think. But anyway, but Daniel Warren Johnson is basically still running the Transformers book. So Kirkman is basically essentially acting like the showrunner for the Energon Universe. He's sticking with Void Rivals, but then he handed off Transformers to Daniel Warren Johnson, and then Joshua Williamson gets the G.I. Joe Cobra side of things. The Transformers book here is fantastic. If you grew up on the 80s stuff, this is definitely a love letter to that, because you've got obviously the designs of the G1 Transformers here. It's a greatest hits of the G1, Autobots and Decepticons. A lot of the best ones you know and love are in here, and then a couple others are going to be peppered throughout the series. But of course, it's also a series that is not afraid to pull punches and to get serious when need be, because we lose 2 core Autobots in the first issue, and in shocking fashion. So because they just totally kind of dropped that on you. But yeah, I don't want to spoil anything if you guys haven't read Transformers #1. But yeah, we lose a couple of Autobots in the first issue here, and one of them's a tough one. The whole plot of this still is the Autobots and Decepticons fighting on Cybertron, trying to escape and find more Energon in their war effort. And so you get basically a small band of Autobots and Decepticons on the Ark crash landing on Earth. So in the first issue, we're only introduced to, a few of your core Autobots, Optimus, Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, I think Mirage is in there, Ratchet, a few of those guys like that. And then, of course, the Transformers, or the Decepticons go. We've got Starscream seems to be in charge. Then there's the other planes, Skywarp and Thunderclap. Soundwave's in there with his, little tape, minions. So, we've got kind of a ragtag group of stuff there. There seems to be a mystery as to where Megatron is. Anytime someone mentions Megatron, Starscream gets a little uppity about it. So I've got a feeling he's got something to do with that. But yeah, like I said, it's an odd pairing of kind of having, the style and the art of the Transformers that we know and love, but it's not afraid to get violent. Like I said, #1, we lose some poor people, but issue 3 has a knockdown, drag out fight between Optimus Prime and Skywarp that there's a couple of moments where you're like, wow. It's hard to believe they went there, but they go there. So yeah, it's just excellent stuff. And like I said, Transformers, their sales have been knocking out of the park. It's constantly a book every week that people are wanting. So it is crazy. Couple of comments here. Seth Moore's piping in here, says, man, Kirkman always manages to tell such good stories that can blow your mind and go directions you've never dreamed of. This sounds like so much fun. It really is. It's a new day for Joe and Transformers fans, because you've got basically a top class creative team who's working on all ends of this stuff here, all under the mastery of Robert Kirkman, basically. And they've got big plans for stuff. Issue 4 of Transformers, you find out a little more information about where Megatron is. And then let's get to the G.I. Joe side of things here, because last month we saw, 2 weeks ago, we saw the release of Duke #1. And then this week is Cobra Commander #1. Both written by Joshua Williamson. Tom Riley does the art for Duke, and Andrea Milana does the art for Cobra Commander. Both have a very different look to these books here. Duke, his whole thing, it kind of connects back to issue 2 of Transformers, where he has a run-in with Starscream. So it's the first time Duke has ever seen a Transformer before. G.I. Joe does not exist at this point, so he's a member of the U.S. military, and obviously he's a little freaked out about it. So Duke #1 follows his journey as to how this has affected Duke, his military career, and the information he's looking for that maybe his own government is trying to hide from him. We see some familiar faces from the Joe team here, like not General Hawk, but still Colonel Hawk. So he's not a general just yet. And also, one of the Joe classics, Stalker, shows up at the end of this book here in a very interesting fashion. But another interesting thing about Duke, and we haven't seen anything come of this just yet, but in the solicitations and advertisements, you see like group photos for Cobra Commander and for Duke. And in the Cobra Commander one, you see Cobra, you see Destro, Zorana, and I think like a Cobra Viper. For G.I. Joe, you see G.I. Joe, or you see Duke, you see Colonel Hawk, you see Stalker, and then you also see the Baroness. We don't know where she fits in just yet, or if she's a part of the G.I. Joe team, or if this maybe is a story of how kind of like she has a heel turn later on. But yeah, interesting thing there. Also, some other familiar faces here. If you guys remember Mercer, who was part of the Slaughters Marauders group, who was the former Cobra Viper and then turned into a G.I. Joe member. Yeah. So, and also, if you guys, an old throwback to issue 1 of G.I. Joe. But there was a certain doctor that the Joe team was protecting from Cobra. She pops back up in this as well here. So, again, it's just, yeah. The Joe side of this stuff is fun. Issue 2 of Duke is coming out here in a couple of weeks. So we look forward to seeing what's going on there. But let's get talking a little bit more about Cobra Commander number 1. I'm going to get a little spoilery here. At this point, Cobra does not exist. This is kind of the building blocks of how Cobra was formed. The organization that does exist, however, and where Cobra Commander comes from, is very familiar to G.I. Joe the movie fans, because yes, Cobra Law is back in G.I. Joe continuity here. Cobra Commander is a scientist. He's trying to develop some weapons that he is basically using from a source that he's not quite divulging just yet to his other fellow scientists and members of the leadership organizations and whatever else behind Cobra Law, but he assures them he's working for them, and he's developing some weapons that will merge organic and some technological stuff together here, because Cobra Law is all about using organic stuff. They don't like using machines. And old Cobra Commander here, which they don't even give it a name at this point. He's kind of Cobra Commander, but essentially he's like, no, I've got a way to merge the two. And so, essentially things are going, there's some fighting, there's some, some revolting going on with what Cobra Commander is doing here, because people are against him merging organic and technological. Essentially, you find out the source of Cobra Commander stuff. He has the top half of Megatron, basically from the waist up, and has had him for a long period of time. Now, Megatron apparently appears to be alive, but yeah. Cobra Commander's been milking Megatron to create weaponry, and then to essentially start his building blocks for building his organization. So we kind of get a little bit of his past, a little bit of his present. In his present, old Cobra Commander is not the sniveling coward that we remember from the cartoons. This guy's not afraid to get his hands bloody, and even when he's heisting a car. Yeah. But interestingly enough, Cobra Commander is on his way to the Florida Everglades for some recruitment. So we'll see maybe a bit of a new twist on the Dreadnoks. But just again, very exciting stuff here with how we're watching G.I. Joe and Cobra being built in this new universe, and then how the Transformers are being incorporated. Duke was obviously traumatized from his experience, and is basically set on hunting these things, and they're bad, and they killed my friend, and they almost killed me, sort of thing like that. So he's not even seeing the benefit of the Autobots or anything like that. He's just seeing evil, gotta kill it, and why is my government hiding this from me and trying to kill me? And then over to Cobra Commander, he's inspired by them and using them literally to make new weapons and then basically build his new army. So it's just fascinating how all this stuff is, working in some familiar things, working in some new stuff here. And it's just, I'm like I said, I'm absolutely here for it. Absolutely here for it. A couple more comments here. Just mention here. Seth Moore says, I still say it's Zartan disguised as the Baroness. Then it's an excellent disguise. Let's put it that way. We haven't seen Baroness pop up yet. We've just seen her in ads and on variant covers, but I think maybe issue 2, maybe we'll see her pop up. We'll see. I don't know. But yeah, I'm very curious as to where she works into the story here. Also, Seth chimes in, says, and if Sergeant Slaughter doesn't beat Nemesis Enforcer in this Cobra Commander series, I'm going to riot in my living room. Well said, sir. Yes. Oh, well, here's some other images here. So to kind of further my point at the beginning of the thing here of why Skybound is literally dominating here. Like I said, Transformers #1 sold at over 150,000 copies. Duke #1 pre-sales on that were at over 70,000 copies. Cobra Commander was like nearly like 65,000. So it's, they're both neck and neck here. But basically, Skybound picked up a whole lot of best of awards for 2023. The Hollywood Reporter gave Transformers one of the best comics of 2023. Comicbook.com gave them their Golden Issue Award for Best Cartoonist for Transformers. Comicbook.com also gave Best Limited Series to Void Rivals. The Beat gave Best Comics of 2023 to the Transformers. CBR, Comic Book Resources, said Transformers was part of their top 100 comics of 2023. Also, there's Void Rivals as well. Of course, a lot of Skybound stuff in here. Clementine, that's part of the Walking Dead universe. Firepower is another Robert Kirkman book. That's basically like an Iron Fist that's more culturally appropriate. Yeah, but kung fu fighting, cool stuff. Of course, Universal Monsters Dracula is huge right now, blowing up, and they announced that the next Universal monster that is going to be covered by Image Comics is the Creature from the Black Lagoon. So look forward to that coming up in the spring. But yeah, like I said, just the accolades, the sales, everything is with the Energon Universe right now. So it's literally this, like I said, this is time to get on the ground floor. You may not be able to get first printings of Void Rivals and Transformers #1. You might get lucky. Hopefully you don't have to pay too much for them. But you may get lucky being able to find them. But you can easily find some of the later issues and first printings. Even if you can't get first printings of them if you don't really care about that, some of the later printings have some really cool covers. So those are worth checking out as well. Like I said, Duke and Cobra Commander both have been released very recently. So Cobra Commander, you probably should be able to get your basic covers for those. Maybe some of the incentives might be sold out. Will the kind of remains to be seen with your local comic shop and their availability. But yeah, right now, if you're trying to find stuff online, some of the sales for those have been crazy. So buyer beware on that stuff. Don't go paying like $50 for a copy. It's great stuff, but I was like, I don't know if you want to go that far, but to each their own. Ultimate Spider-Man #1 that was released last week is crazy blowing up. Some of the variant covers on that series is going for like $70-$90 in like the second week of its release. So just saying, yeah, there's some hot books out there right now. But yeah, like I said, the Energon Universe is certainly a part of that through Image Comics and the Skybound imprint that Robert Kirkman runs. So there's a lot more to come. And again, I am here for this. I don't know how far the Void Rivals series is going to go. And of course, Transformers seems to be a long form series. Duke and Cobra Commander are going to be apparently 4-issue miniseries. And once they wrap up, then we'll see what the other G.I. Joe miniseries are going to be from there. Kirkman has promised that he's only going to basically run 4 series at a time because he is aware of the fact that there are a lot of other franchises and comic books out there right now that have too many titles. X-Men. That it's hard for readers to keep up, either with the time, with their finances, or just do you want to read 15 books a week that are just about the mutants? So there's a lot of stuff going on right now where basically you're kind of being drained, and they're aware of that fact. So they're keeping price points at $3.99 an issue. Like I said, there's only going to be 4 books that are out at a time. So right now we've got Void Rivals, Transformers, Duke, and Cobra. So once Duke and Cobra wrap up, then we'll get our next Joe titles from there. And I'm sure once those miniseries wrap up, I would hope that Josh Williamson maintains and gets to do the proper G.I. Joe series that we'll see basically Joe versus Cobra sort of thing like that. So yeah, we're at just a very exciting time right now, completely re-energizing both G.I. Joe and Transformers. And honestly, in related news, Dynamite Entertainment has a Thundercats book that is coming out, I believe, in February. That its pre-sale 100,000 copies and counting. So nostalgia is huge right now. IDW just renewed their license for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and then announced that Jason Aaron is going to do a new Ninja Turtles series. So, again, heavy hitters coming in and doing major stuff here, and it's selling like hotcakes. So, yeah, it's, again, this is the time to get in on this, especially if you're a reader, it's a great time. If you're an investor, it's also a great time. I'm a reader first, so yeah, that's really all I care about. I want the story, and if the art's good, then that's fantastic here. But yeah, so we will see what the future holds for the Energon Universe. But right now, if you're a Joe and Transformers fan, it's a bright day. And even someone asked me in the shop if the Rise of the Beast Transformers movie inspired this Energon Universe, and the unusual thing is, no, it didn't. It's a complete coincidence that, the movies were also going to be doing this crossover. Like, Image Comics, they had the license to do comics and they're doing their own thing over there, but had no idea that Paramount Pictures was basically kind of relaunching a shared G.I. Joe Transformers universe, and Rise of the Beast was the beginning of that. So, surprises all around, but yeah, it is a good time to be a Joe and Transformers fan. That is for sure. One more comment here from Seth. Image usually has good deals on first volumes on trade paperbacks, so that's a good option if you don't want to pay big for the single issues. Very good point there, Seth. We're still waiting on the first trade for Void Rivals, but now that at least we're 6 issues in, I'm sure it's going to be coming shortly. So there's that. And Transformers at this point, the first 4 issues were one storyline, and then issue 5, I think, starts a new storyline. So I'm not sure how that will pair up with that. And then obviously Duke and Cobra Commander, those 4-issue series will be compiled in their own trade paperbacks, I'm sure. So yeah, very good point. If you're more of a trade paperback reader, that's definitely a good, cheap way. And yeah, Image is really good when it comes to basically their price points on their books. You don't, unless you're dealing with like a big annual or an anthology series or something like that, you may be paying, $7, $8, $9 for that volume. But yeah, most of the time, your usual books are $4 unless you read Spawn, and they're $3 because Todd McFarlane still believes in in giving you a deal there. So, but yeah, like I said, just one more time to reiterate, it is just a great time to be a fan here. Great time to get on the Energon Universe because the sales are with it, the awards are with it, the fans are with it. So they're firing on all cylinders right now. So it is a very fun time. I like how the Transformers side of things are taking their time with rolling out Megatron, and basically he's got an upcoming return at some point. He's going to make a comeback, and there will be a reckoning, I'm sure, for both Autobots and his fellow Decepticons, and maybe even Cobra, depending on how that relationship goes. But yeah, so they're setting up for big stuff for that. But again, we've seen some other solicitations of other Transformers, other Decepticons that we haven't seen just yet in the series. And of course, more Joe and Cobra favorites as well. So I just like the new coat of paint on some familiar characters. And of course, there's Cobra. The fans were saying, "Where's Snake Eyes?" or "Where's Zartan?" or from Transformers stuff. Where they're asking, "Where the Dinobots?" or things. Just various questions like that because their own favorites want to come through it. At this point, Kirkman's telling everybody, just wait. It's all coming. We don't want to roll. It's like they're trying to hold back their own excitement and anxiety of not want to put out everything at once. But that is the temptation. Oh, anywho. So, yeah. So that's what we've got right now for the Energon Universe, folks. Again, got to check this stuff out. It's a Good time to be in here. And yeah, it's don't miss out too much here, because there's a lot of times I get customers coming in that get a little bit behind the eight ball, and they want to get that first print copy, number one or whatever else, and like, you should have been here 4 weeks ago. You should have been here, 2 weeks ago, or whatever else. So it's, we try to keep our fans and customers abreast of this stuff, and like, hey, this is big coming down the pike here. You may want to get on this, or I know you're a fan of this stuff. You may want to check this out. So we try to help out, but of course, when Kirkman surprises us with Void Rivals, we had no warning on that. But yeah, so I'm telling you now, this is a good time to get on that stuff, because it's going to blow up even further than I think it's already going, than it already has now. So because there's still a lot of principles we haven't seen just yet, a lot of big surprises in store for all of us for there. So anywho, that is all I've got for you all this week here. Lots of good Marvel stuff to check out. Of course, we haven't finished up season 2 of What If. Definitely check that out, because that is a lot of fun. They pull out the big guns for the vocal talent. It's kind of a who did they didn't get more than who did they get for some of these episodes. Echo is out in its entirety. Definitely recommend checking that out. A lot of people are sleeping on this series, and the ones who aren't, that kind of like, oh, I wasn't expecting this. It's awesome. It's violent. And if you're a Daredevil fan, you definitely need to watch this, because there's some important stuff that happens that leads into the Daredevil Born Again series. And also, speaking of, we talked a few weeks back how Daredevil Born Again has been pushed back because Marvel essentially didn't like what was being produced. So they got a whole new showrunner, new directors, yada, yada, yada. They are keeping some of the footage that was already done, but they're doing some new things. But if you haven't heard, one of the wrongs that the previous administration on Born Again did, that this new administration is righting, is that Foggy Nelson and Karen Page are back. So both actors who did their roles in the Daredevil series for Netflix, and then we've seen Foggy pop up in She-Hulk. No, actually I'm wrong, but yeah. So Karen Page and Foggy are back for Daredevil Born Again. Thank God, because they're important characters. They're great actors. They did a great job in the Netflix series. So why wouldn't they be included for this new revival of that for Disney? So very glad to hear about that. So yeah, it looks like we're in good store, for what I guess 2025. 25 is going to be a banger year for Marvel stuff. Anywho, so thank you guys for tuning into the Fanatic Forum this week here. Appreciate you all. Appreciate all the comments. Definitely like, share, comment if you guys didn't get to join us live here. I always want to hear people's takes on things, your opinions, whatever else the case may be, especially when we're talking about the comics this week here, talking about the Energon Universe, whatever the case may be. I want to hear what you guys think about that. Definitely tune in with us next week at 6 p.m. Eastern for the Multiverse fundraiser. We get to talk with Bob Hall. I can't wait for that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And if you can, please give to Comic Books for Kids. We've already got the link set up with the Multiverse fundraiser. So if you can't join us for the fundraiser, you can already donate on behalf of the Cereal Box Network. And of course, if you can join us live, then we'd love to have you. And love to have you the whole weekend. And if you can give, please give generously, because it's definitely a noble cause. So thank you all very much. And we will see you next week on the Fanatic Forum. You all have a wonderful weekend. See ya.